Will the felon invoke the Insurrection Act and use private militias to do mass deportations? Will DOGE and Elon Musk comply with the subpoena to turn over documents? And will DOGE be allowed to have access to the Social Security payment system? Let's look into all that. Welcome to Scrying Out Loud. My name is Trevor. First of all, huge thank you to everyone who's subscribed to the channel, to everyone who watches the videos, likes the videos, comments on the videos. If you've given money to the channel, huge thank you. I really like reading your comments. So let's, a few of you have asked about whether um, Musk will comply with the subpoena from Judge Chutkan to turn over documents related to Doge. So let's start there. And then there's some question as whether Doge is going to be blocked from being allowed to see the Social Security payment system. So let's also look at that. So will will Musk and Doge comply with the subpoena? So I see handcuffs in the water. I don't think that means anybody's going to get arrested. What I think that means is that they know she isn't playing a game. And if they don't comply, she very well might go to that level. Since she already expedited the discovery in the case, meaning that it's so sensitive that it needs to move forward quickly, if they delay it, I feel like she probably will put down some serious guardrails. But let's look. Will they comply? My initial instinct is that they will. And, if you're charged with contempt of court, it's not something that can be pardoned, or at least I don't think so. I don't see how it could be because you're not actually convicted of anything yet. So if you're detained for contempt of court that's a good legal question. I'm not sure. We get ill health, needing to rest, being exhausted. I think they're tired of all the legal ramblings, to be honest with you. And that's probably why they're just going to go ahead and comply because they're not going to stop until they do. The challenge is the Eight of Cups, walking away from something that no longer serves us. So if the felon has advised them not to turn over documents, that's a problem. But I don't think they're going to listen to him because, after all, it's not really his skin in the game. I don't know if you heard that was a huge thunderbolt. Um, right as I said that, which is interesting. We get the moon card. There's things under the surface that we don't quite see yet. So there might be some interactions between the felon, Doge, Musk, the felon, Musk, and people in Doge, lawyers, that we maybe might not be quite aware of. In the past, are at a crossroads, and I think this is just literally what it means is we've been at a crossroads for some time since Doge came about. But we get the hangman, we get pausing and suspension. I think there's going to be an order that pauses uh, some of their actions. We get the Seven of Pentacles in the near future. If one plan doesn't work, try another. So even if that happens, they're going to continue to try to be able to do these things. We get the Ace of Wands. This is some fiery leadership. I think this is Judge Chutkan and some other judges that are involved in some of the other cases, just saying, no, this isn't how things are done. And we get the Four of Cups. Um, here the Four of Cups, the depiction is the hand of God hands the fourth cup. This is the after tarot, but here it's like they're accepting their fate. That's what this makes me feel like. Like, I don't think they have a choice. We get the Wheel of Fortune and the hopes and fears. if they go against the court order, there's going to be consequences. If they go with the court order, there's going to be consequences, except for the consequences of going with turning over documents. It's just that perhaps there's some limitations on what DOGE can actually look into and what systems they have access to. Yeah, there's a threat of confinement, and I think they know that. She wouldn't have expedited it if she didn't think it was super serious. There's an offer coming forward or something coming forward, which could be them just disclosing the documents that are asked for, and another message coming forward that's going to be a little bit more shocking, which might be actually some of the stuff in the documents. Underneath, we get the Six of Cups, thinking about the next generation. I think that's exactly what the judge has in mind. We get the truth being revealed, and we get a surprising new start. Now, I've always thought DOGE would go away eventually, or at least it would start to act like you know, an agency with government oversight. So I think that they'll comply with the subpoena. They have, I think she gave them 3 weeks, and that was a little while ago. So it won't be too long before we find out there. Um, will DOGE be prevented from accessing the Social Security payment system? So there's been some courts that have been looking into this. They haven't ruled yet, or at least not as of the time I'm recording this. Will DOGE be prevented from accessing the Social Security payment system? I see a question mark in the water. It's kind of like, why do they need access to it? Social Security is not government spending. And, they can make changes to Social Security to affect how it's distributed, how much is collected, for example, that kind of stuff. But they can't just like decide somebody's not going to get Social Security. It just doesn't work that way. Let's see what the cards say, but my instinct is that DOGE is going to get struck down a lot. Yeah, there's a lot of anxiety, and I get this from your guys' comments too. There's a lot of anxiety around what's going on with Social Security. The challenge is that if they're allowed to do this, it's setting a precedent as to why wouldn't other government agencies all of a sudden get access to certain payment databases? Where does the line get drawn? That's their problem in their pursuit and their legal argument. We get some sort of surprising new beginning, and I think this is just the judges saying no. And I think it's the Supreme Court agreeing with the lower courts when they say no to DOGE. We get the tower in the past. This is just us living through the last 50 some days, which feels like an eternity. And all the horrible things that have been going on that make absolutely no sense. They've managed to fire a bunch of people claiming to be cutting the federal deficit, and the federal deficit has skyrocketed since the felon took office. So, I mean, nothing that they're doing makes any sense whatsoever. That's the tower. It's just the energy of the United States and perhaps the broader world when they look at the United States. We get the King of Cups, steady and compassionate leadership. This is often my card for the Democrats. Here, I think it's the judges. They're looking at this going, you just don't need that. Near future, a decision will be made. We'll get the ruling. I don't think it's going to take very long. Justice is going to prevail. So I don't think there's anything to worry about there. We get Elon Musk, but that makes sense. Justice prevails and kind of smacks Elon Musk down and says, no, you don't get to do this. The hopes and fears is that the guardrails will hold, that the courts will do the right thing, the Nine of Wands. The fear is that they won't. The outcome is confinement, really reining in what DOGE's scope is. That's what the ruling is going to do. And we get the Wheel of Fortune. The fortunes are turning. What are they turning towards? They're turning towards stability. I think these judges see the chaos that is being created and they're wanting to solve it, and they're wanting to solve it quickly with the Eight of Wands. Yeah, we're at a crossroads. Here's the card for the Felon, the King of Pentacles. We get this fiery message going forward. This feels like the Felon and Elon Musk being disappointed. I just get the image of the expression on the man, not the meaning of the cards. And it's because of the truth, which surprises a lot of people, that the courts go along and smack down DOGE and say, no, you don't get access to everything you want access to. And the Supreme Court will agree with them. You know, they're mad at Amy Coney Barrett, but if you look back, I predicted Amy Coney Barrett would start siding with the liberals right after the election. It was one of the first, actually, maybe it's part of my 2025 predictions. I forget. There might be a separate video on just her. Sometimes I forget what I read on because I get in a kind of a meditative state. Okay, so big questions. Will the felon invoke the Insurrection Act? This, I think, is a little bit scarier of a question. So let's use this deck. So part of me thinks yes, because that's why they were firing so many people inside the Pentagon, generals, and so forth. Will the felon invoke the Insurrection Act? Yeah, I see a lot of arm twisting to get it recommended. So there'll be a recommendation coming forward from the military saying that we should do this to give it some justification, or from the Pentagon or the Department of Defense. Something along those lines is what I'm feeling. We get the Empress card. That's really interesting. So that's a yes card, first of all, but it's our card for Russia. The challenge is loss. And we'll get into what I think what that means is that the courts will say, okay, you actually don't have the authority to do that for a domestic problem. Um, which seems kind of counterintuitive because they're going to argue, well, if people are in the country without documents, then they're not, it's not a domestic problem. But I think that's what the courts are going to say. We'll read on that too. The truth comes out because their motivation isn't pure, right? Their motivation isn't because there actually is some sort of catastrophic threat within inside the United States because of people being here undocumented. There just isn't a threat there. The threat is more likely them trying to do something about it and hurting people in the process. We used to have reasonableness when it came to this issue, but it's in the past. It's going to be a real heavy burden to lift if they do it. It's going to be really hard to convince the courts that this falls within the scope of the Insurrection Act. In the near-term future, there'll be some fighting about this, arguing. We might not hear right away whether they're going to do it. They might take some time. Wouldn't surprise me if they tried to do this before, the midterm elections, like if they put it off that long. It's a balancing act. This is they're already kind of on thin ice with the American public as it is. And we have ill health. It would just make the country sicker in some sense. Like it would further erode the trust in the government if they do it. In the hopes and fears, we get the Page of Wands, we get a message coming forward. This is a hope that there's a message coming forward that's reasonable. The fear is that the message coming forward out of the Department of Defense or the Pentagon, Joint Chiefs of Staff, whoever it is, might be recommending that they use the Insurrection Act. If they do, it's going to lead to complete and utter downfall, though. So with the Ten of Swords, it'll start to be the beginning of the end of this administration unraveling. And we get the Page of Cups, bombshells and surprises. I'm not sure what would be the bigger surprise if they do it or if they don't do it at this point. What do you think? And we get the Queen of Wands, passionate leadership. So this feels like the judiciary. Underneath, we have wish fulfillment and empathy and shedding a light on the situation, and finally reunions and celebrations. Okay, are they going to implement it? That I'm not sure about. Are they going to be allowed to implement it? No, I don't think so. So the other concern is that they'll use private militias. Of course, they need the Insurrection Act to do it. And I think this is where the courts get involved. So in a lot of states, private militias are outlawed, right? So will the felon try to use private militias to carry out deportations? Try to use deportations or militias to carry out deportations. He wants to. Now, whether he gets to or not's a different story. But he wants to. He wants that chaotic scene. About the next generation, though, the Six of Cups. Okay. Will he employ private militias? I don't think so. We get the Star of Protection. The challenge here is the Empress. This is normally the card for Russia, but here this is like mothers, families, the glue that holds a family unit together. That's the challenge, is it's going to just create such a backlash. And people are going to be worried that people are going to die if they do it. That's just the way it is. It'd be the beginning of something very dark and the end of normalcy. Well, what's left of normalcy. We get the Hanged Man in the past. I think they've maybe already made a decision. It's pausing, suspension, rethinking. There'll be a message coming forward. The Page of Wands. And we get circles of support and celebrations in the near-term future. There's a lot of fighting behind the scenes. Something is inevitable. To me, what's inevitable is that there's going to be some limitations placed on when a president can use the Insurrection Act. In the hopes and fears, we get logic and truth, the King of Swords. It is a hope that logical minds will prevail. We get victory and the outcome. That's pretty clear. We get things coming forward quickly and walking away from things that don't serve us. So I think there's a lot going on in this reading. Again, the Queen of Wands kind of reminds me of some powerful judicial figure. So perhaps Amy Coney Barrett not that I view her in any sort of like, I don't think she deserves any accolades for doing the right thing, but, and she hasn't always done the right thing. So let's not overread that. It feels like if they do it, it's the beginning of the end. People are going to just like, he's already, that's the one thing in the CNN poll where he still had about half the country on his side was immigration. I don't know how, but that's what the poll said. So I think it won't. But let's throw another set of cards just on, will the courts prevent this from happening? And my sense is that they will. So will the courts prevent the Insurrection Act from being enacted because of undocumented people being in the country? Either the courts or the military refusing to go along with it. Courts prevent this from happening. Courts prevent this from happening. I think so. I see the Hierophant in the water, which is the symbol for the courts. It just appeared, so wasn't there a little bit ago. So it's like the courts will come up and stop this, and they'll stop it quick. Like there'll be instantaneous lawsuits from attorneys generals all over the country. Initially, we got heartache, the Three of Swords. Let's keep going. The challenge is firing new leadership or firing new messages. Underneath, we get the Empress. And again, I don't think this is Russia. I think this is like that family unit, thinking about the family unit. In the past, something was inevitable and probably had overseas influence. I think that was the election. We're going to get a message coming forward, but the message is going to be kind of shaky with the Knight of Swords. In the near term outcome, we get the Eight of Pentacles. People are hard at work already, ready to file lawsuits. The truth emerges. The truth on why they really want to do this is going to come out. It's not going to be good enough to just say we want to get rid of people that are here undocumented. There has to be a rationale as to why it's a threat to the country. And we get wounded in battle or the victor, depending on how you're looking at this. And we get heavy burdens and the hopes and fears. I don't think it's even going to make it to the courts because I don't think he's going to enact it. But we get the Eight of Cups, walking away from things that no longer serve us, stability, the Four of Pentacles, and the Ace of Pentacles, a new beginning. I don't think it's going to get to the course because I don't think he's going to enact it. There's only one major arcana here, so there's not a ton of energy around it. It kind of feels like it's like a hypothetical reading. So we'll look at it again. The Two of Cups is on the bottom, partnerships. So we'll look at it again at a later date. And if he does enact it, then of course we'll really look at it then. All right. Thank you for watching.